Hi, this is Danielle Isaac. I'm your host today, and I am excited to have a new topic. We're going to be talking about how to overcome those limiting beliefs that are holding us back from actually creating the things in our life that we want to create. Some people call that manifesting, if you'd like. And my guest speaker, Karen Aquinas, is going to be talking about what creates those limiting beliefs and how do we remove those so-called blocks, as a lot of us like to call us. We know we should be able to have the things. How do we get the things? How do we remove the blocks that prevent us from actually manifesting? So I'm excited to have you here, Karen. You want to say hi to everybody?
Hello, it's great to be here. I love this topic. This is so fun and usually pretty useful for people. So this is great.
Yes. And of course, you know, everybody has that big question like, well, why don't I have the things yet? Like, right? What is stopping me from having those things? I really want the money, Karen. I really want the money.
Yeah.
How do I get the money? So let's start with that. We'll kind of do a little introduction of who Karen is in just a moment, but let's start with that first question. You know, what do you think, I know it's a big question, but what do you think is the one or two things that kind of stop people from actually being able to manifest the cars, the money, the house? What have you noticed?
It's so funny that you brought that specific question up, the money thing. We tapped on that in a group session just yesterday, tapping into greatness and why don't I have the money? And as we're tapping along, because what tapping does is it raises our vibration. When we raise our vibration, we have access to clarity and wisdom that we don't have when we're in a lower vibration and focusing on lack and what I don't have. And when we're focused on that question, why don't I have it yet? That's what we're making more of. We're creating more of that. We're going to find whatever we're looking for. So if you want to find why don't you have it yet, go ahead and put your energy there. But if you want to create it, then you're going to put your energy somewhere else. So we start tapping yesterday. And what we find is we're tapping into the greatness of being financially free. We discovered that for this particular person in the past, money had caused trouble. Also, in the past, she hadn't been a good money manager. So then we find, oh, there's these beliefs back here that I didn't even know were running in my subconscious brain. That subconscious that dictates 95% of everything we think and say and do. And so then when we tap on money has caused trouble in the past, and even though money has caused trouble in the past, doesn't mean it has to cause trouble in the future. And because it caused trouble in the past, I am now so much wiser than I was before, and probably am a much better money manager now than I have ever been or would ever be. So we can tap into eradicating the beliefs that were established by past experiences and create new beliefs around what's possible.
Wow. That's a big answer.
Does that make sense? I hope that wasn't too big.
No, it's a big answer. So let's kind of talk about what tapping is. Some people are familiar with it, some people aren't. And I think it's a really powerful tool that we can use. So you want to share a little bit more about what tapping is?
Sure. Yeah, we with the pun of tapping into something is the same. Anyway, yeah, tapping, we tap on meridian endpoints in the body that are connected to the premovascular system, that system that governs the nerves. It's an energy. It's the system that, if you're familiar with acupuncture, everyone, that's what's going on there. It's the energy, your energy body, your biofield. So when we tap on the end meridian points, it calms the nervous system. And when we do that, at the same time, we tune into unsettling events or situations in our lives or emotions, we can clear those from the system. It works very much the same as the cardiovascular system, that system that pumps blood through our body. We don't want blockages and clots in that system. We don't want blockages and clots in our energy system either. So when we physically stimulate the meridians in the body, the energy meridians, it helps to clear out congestion. It relieves stuck energy, increases our vibrations so that we feel better.
Very good. Very good. So it's an interesting process of a lot of us are familiar with affirmations or recognizing what are the thoughts that are creating some contraction or some stories that are limiting in our belief system, and then learning to shift those thoughts to more empowering ones. How does tapping work? Does it work in tandem with that, or how does it work with that?
It can work in tandem with that. The work of Noah St. John suggests that affirmations work for only about 23% of the population. So if we're trying to convince ourselves, I am deserving of wealth, I'm deserving of wealth, and we're repeating that, trying to hammer that into the subconscious, and the subconscious is saying, no, you're not, no, you're not, then it really is hard. If we ask a question, why am I deserving of wealth, or something along those lines, then the subconscious gets on board and starts to answer that question. When we tap at the same time, we're doing affirmations, which you can also do just on your fingertips. It brings in, it's kind of like it brings in all of you. Some people, the key phrase now is it puts it on steroids. So it'd be like putting your affirmations on steroids if you're tapping at the same time. Say you're trying to lose weight. I'm strong and lean at 118. I'm strong and lean at 118. Whatever the affirmation is for you that you're trying to put in, you can do that. Or you can say, why am I strong and lean? And then your subconscious start going, well, because you exercise, because you eat well, because you pay attention. And so when you tap at the same time, it just gives that more of a boost.
Very cool. So we're talking about how we have subconscious blocks that we're not even aware of, that are what are getting in our way of manifesting the things that we want. Money, the love of our life, whatever that may be, we have these blocks. So one of the things that you're talking about that creates these blocks are past experiences, right? Would you say it's always past experience, or are there other things that create it?
I don't think it's always past experiences, although that's usually where our thoughts and beliefs come from. So you could maybe technically say, yeah, it's from past experience. It could be from a television show you watched when you were 8 years old. So many different things. When it comes to that, remembering that I said, what we go looking for, we're going to find. So where we spend most of our time is where we're going to be. So we can go ahead and dive in and analyze and try to figure that out, or not. In most cases, it turns out that it's really effective not to try to figure out why, not to try to figure out what that belief is. But in some cases, especially if it's a pattern for you, if you find that you keep attracting a partner in your life that has similar traits that make the relationship toxic, then that's a situation where you might want to go, you know what, I want to sit down with an expert and figure out what that's about. And in many cases, what happens is we find out that there was a moment in the past where something happened, and sometimes just figuring out what that moment was is enough to shed the light on it so that the whole thing disappears. You don't even have to go and deal with it or process it or anything like that. It's just enough to understand that, oh, that's what was going on. The source that I thought was reliable that gave me this belief was not as reliable as I thought at that time. And maybe that source was stressed out. Maybe that source was intoxicated. We don't know, but we find out that it wasn't a reliable source. And then that belief is immediately blown out of the water. Sometimes we discover that maybe we're unlovable, and we go back into the past and we find out, you know what, my grandfather always loved me. I forgot that. And we realize in that split second that I am lovable. And that changes everything. So sometimes it's a very, very powerful thing to sit down with somebody who can help you quickly get to what that is. If you're spending your days and your hours searching for it, that's energy in a lower vibration that isn't going to help you. So if you're feeling like you need to uncover something, you might look for somebody who can help you do that quickly. The other piece of that being in the past, I'm just going to stop there. That's good.
Okay. Well, one of the questions that kind of popped up to me is some people may think about the talk therapy. I think a lot of us are familiar with talk therapy, where we go back and we rehash the past. And that can actually be a very painful way or process to kind of look at why you are the way you are today, why you believe what you do. Would you say that the way that you work with people, for example, through tapping, is different than that, and how so?
Absolutely. Many of the people I work with have been in talk therapy for many, many years. And what you find is that, once again, what you talk about, what you think about, you bring about, you create more of in your life. So when you go in every week and you talk about all the horrible things, it actually physically makes the grooves in the brain deeper so that it becomes more real and more in focus and present in your life. What's missing is the energy piece. So I will tell some people who are still going to talk therapy, I said, go ahead and tap while you're sitting there in talk therapy, because the tapping releases the energetic charge that comes with that whatever you're talking about. And so energetic charge could also be explained as emotion, the emotion that comes up when you're talking. So you say you sit down every week and you're just crying because of the things that have happened. And you're so, unless you're doing something to help release and let go of that, and let the body know that now it is safe, and let yourself know that you have made a decision to be happier in your life, and this is the direction you want to go now, then you're not setting that appointment every week to go and talk about what's miserable and what isn't working in your life. You're setting an appointment to create something really fabulous. So the difference in what I do is that we bring the energy piece in. And so if we go into something from the past, it's not analyzed, it's not discussed. We don't talk about everything that went down. It's more of a recognition and an acceptance of, okay, even though this is what happened, I choose to be okay now, or I choose to move on. And that can be a huge leap for people. Many people identify as a victim, or they identify as a survivor. And if that's what their identification has been for decades, it can be a hard thing to let go of. So then there's also that piece of, okay, well, is that really what I want? Is how do I want to live my life? Who do I want to be? And if you want to be a survivor, then go for it. If that's bringing you joy and happiness, then that's working for you. If you want to, you get to choose is kind of the point.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think one of the things that you said that is can be easily overlooked, that is so important, is setting the intention of releasing and letting the old stories go, or the old trauma, the hurt, the pain that came with that. One of the people that I can't remember who told me this, but they said, you can have the memory, but you don't have to have the pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't have to have the hurt that comes every time you remember that situation. You can have the memory without the emotion.
Exactly.
And I think tapping is a big part of helping you have the memory, right? But we don't have the pain, we don't have the emotion. We learn to release and let that go, so that's not trapped inside of us anymore and pulling our frequency down, right?
Yeah, there's actually something called the tearless trauma technique. We do it in such a way that there's not all that emotion. The emotion does get released. In my preliminary paperwork when I work one-on-one with clients, it actually states, if you need to present your case in a court of law, you need to wait before you work with me, because if you work with an energist, when you go to present your case in court, the emotion won't be there. The jury's not going to sympathize with you because you're not emotionally engaged in the story that you're telling, because you're just exactly what you said. The memory will be there. The memory will fade with time. But when you're reminded of that charge won't be there anymore. Yeah.
That's really good. So we want to come back to that, obviously, and spend a little bit more time there, because I think this is so important for people really recognizing the importance of changing the story or the narrative that we've had about ourselves as the victim or as the person who has had things happen to us, rather than seeing that we can create for ourselves a different reality. And this is a big part of the shift that so many of us have to make. Before we do that, can you share, like, how did you get into tapping specifically?
Sure. I was a really low point in my life, and got to a place where I couldn't even walk around the block without getting winded. I was physically depleted. I was emotionally a wreck. I was coming out of 10 years of an abusive relationship, and was studying Reiki. And because I was on mailing lists or something, I was on the Tapping Solution mailing list for their World Summit. So I was sitting on my couch thinking, okay, I've got nothing to lose. And I'm going, this is going to make a difference. I thought, this is ridiculous. And after 4.5 years, I was seeing naturopaths and doctors trying to figure out what was wrong with me, and not getting any results. In 2 weeks, I recovered my physical and emotional health. And that was astounding to me. I was happy again. I was vibrant. I was energetic. And within a year, I was running 6 miles again without any problem. And so I couldn't shut up about it. And I started telling my friends, and they were curing canker sores. They were able to sleep at night. There were just all these things. And so then I went and studied it and found out that this was something people do. And I was coming out of a career in education, looking for something next. And it worked out really well.
Wow. So how long have you been doing it?
About 10 years now.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And you work with clients all over the world, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I trained and certified people in EFT for a while, people in counseling centers, and other people just wanted to know more. So that was a lot of fun too.
That's fantastic. So it works, you know it works, and you've seen it work with your friends. And so like, tell us one of the coolest stories that you've had with one of your clients.
Oh my goodness, there's so many. A lot of there's a process when people experience trauma, which is kind of my specialty. You can do a lot of things with tapping. Trauma is kind of my specialty. When people experience a traumatic thing, as you know, it maybe you don't know, but it sounds like you know that it really shifts and changes a person's trajectory in life. They develop beliefs because of that event, and sometimes they develop very deep-seated grief or anxiety. So to walk through the procedure that we go through to relieve that anxiety. So you're asking for an example. So one that comes to mind, two that come to mind, the loss of a loved one and having witnessed a traumatic death. To have someone live for years. For example, one person, she lost her mother when she was a teenager, and the weight of that and how it changed her relationship with her brother was really troubling for her. And after the first session, that weight changed, and we've had 2 or 3 more sessions since then, and everything is just opening up. It's hard to be specific because I'm really big into confidentiality, but that parallels other instances where another woman ran into her mother's cabin. She was there on the floor. The scene was traumatic. And so we worked through that, and it changes the now moment when you go back and take that part of the person who is caught in fight or flight out of fight or flight. There's a lot of wisdom because we know what happens next at this point, right? And so when we can go back and comfort that part of us that is still traumatized, it is profound. And I think that's probably why the American Psychiatric Association recognizes tapping as an evidence-based practice for post-traumatic stress disorder. I think that is why the Veterans Association is now recognizing, and the studies are showing now that it's very effective for post-traumatic stress. And when you move out of that emotional vibration of the event, then you can look at, okay, what did I come away believing from that? Did I come away believing that life isn't safe or that it's not okay to be happy? What did I believe? What do I believe from that? It helps you get clarity once again around, well, you know what, that happened, but it doesn't mean that it's not okay to be happy. It doesn't mean that I'm not safe. And those are 2 very, very powerful things. Many, many people believe it's not okay to be happy, especially when there's so many people in the world who aren't happy. So when we look at more what you're talking about, a conscious creation with others, co-conscious creation, when we realize that we're all together and our happiness can help support others in theirs, then going back and doing our work on our stuff makes a big difference. I'm not sure I answered that question the way you wanted me to.
Well, yes, and then some. So thank you. Yeah. So when you're with the tapping and seeing the trauma that happens with people, so we were talking about energy and how it affects us at an energetic level. So do you want to just kind of touch in, when we're saying it affects us on an energetic level, what does that mean?
Okay, this is great. Now I can use a real example here. Well, the other ones are real too, but anyway. So I'm in this alternative high school as a guest teacher, and the teachers are really uncomfortable. It's right after summer break. The teachers are really uncomfortable because the kids keep using foul language. And so we open up a discussion about it, and we come around to realizing and understanding that foul language, everything we say actually has a vibration, right? And toward the middle and end of the year, it doesn't affect the teachers quite so much because they've been around it all year, but after summer break, they've been home with their families where they're not hearing that kind of language. And they come into this setting where the kids are spouting off this horrible language. And they're just, ugh. And the words have a lower vibration. Now, if you're wanting to create love and money and the things that you desire in your life, you need to be at the vibration that matches that. If you are walking around saying, I'm so bleeping broke, you're down here. If you, whether you're saying out loud or you're thinking it, it's bringing you down. It's taking you out of the vibration. And we know that in order to get the money, in order to get the love, in order to get the peace and the calm and the health, you have to match that vibration before you get there. You have to be at that vibration to attract it. So we listen and pay attention to what we're saying and what we're thinking, and we don't feed it. And what I mean by that is we don't go looking for, why am I thinking about that? Or feeling bad because we're thinking that, or hating somebody else because we think they made us think that. You clear that right away. You make that shift. You turn on a dime if you can and say, you know what, I'm going to think this instead. I'm going to move into that feeling state of what it feels like to be in love, to have the high level in my bank account, that sort of thing.
So I think a lot of people, like for those of people who have studied law of attraction and conscious creation, right? And, we talk a lot about visualization in the mind and vision boards, but the element that seems to be missing from a lot of those conversations is the emotion piece. Mm-hmm. And that there's the way that we attract or is through resonance, and the resonance is more based off of our emotional feeling, right? So can you talk about emotion, feeling, and thought, and how that all works together with attraction?
Sure, yeah. Vision boards are great, but you can make vision boards till the cows come home and have them not have do anything for you, unless when you look at your vision board, it brings you into the feeling state of those things. That's why for some people, words are easier than pictures, and some people, pictures are easier than words. Without the feeling state, which means that emotional state, you're not moving into the vibration of what you want. And it can be tricky. If you are looking at massive amounts of debt, or even some debt, some debt's uncomfortable for people, and you're wanting financial freedom, or you're wanting a job that's going to pay well, it can be hard when you've got overdue notices coming in to move into the vibration first of having plenty, right? That's where a vision board can be helpful. But so if you can look at a vision board, and it doesn't necessarily have a certain kind of car or a vacation spot necessarily, but it has pictures that remind you of times when you have felt really good, because we don't have to we can look at, pictures of money, pictures of cash, but if pictures of cash just make you think how much you don't have it and you want it, that's not going to help. So we want a vibration or a picture that's going to help us move into a better feeling state. It doesn't necessarily have to be, I'm in that state of wealthiness, although carrying around a lottery ticket in my purse for a while was really helpful for me, because I had the sense, because the lottery was like $6 million or something like that. And I thought, 100,000 would be okay. I'd be okay with that. But I had that feeling state of money's coming to me. There's a possibility that money's coming to me. And that shifted the vibration into money's coming to me. And in the next 2 months, while I carried that silly ticket around in my purse, my income doubled. Not because of anything I did necessarily, other than shift my vibration into money's coming to me. So it doesn't have, but what I'm saying is that it doesn't have to be specific like that. It can just be moving up so that you're feeling happier. If you make your goal to be happy, everything else is going to fall under that umbrella. Relationships, money, career, love, all that's under happiness. So it's easier to experience a vibration that you have felt before. So if you have ever been happy, tune into those moments in your life when you've experienced happiness. Don't necessarily sit there and dwell in that memory, but connect to that feeling. Oh, I like that feeling. That was a good feeling. I like that. It feels good. Another way to move in and up the scale is to tune into some facts. For most of us, there is love in our life, whether it's a fur baby or somebody at work appreciates us, or there's family who loves us. So we can say, I am loved. Love is a very powerful force that can raise us up. If you're safe, and most of us are, I am safe. So you can say, I am loved, I am safe. So those are affirmations that are going to work for most of us, and they remind us. So if niggling thoughts come up that bring you down, you can immediately stop and say, oh, yeah, I'm not going to think about that. I'm going to remember I am loved, I am safe. But to say I am happy isn't necessarily going to work. There's going to be a contradiction there, because most people struggle with happiness, but you can say part of me is happy. When you shift just that one word to say part of me is happy, then all of a sudden yeah, part of me is happy. I had a great breakfast this morning, or I really enjoyed the stars last night. Part of me is really feeling the beauty of the garden outside my window, or this train ride that I have on the way to work, the beautiful scenery I get to look at. So lots of ways to move up into the feeling state, but you don't have to be specific. You don't necessarily have to move into the feeling state of having a partner to attract a partner. You need to move into the feeling state of love and happiness and allow that to come to you. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yes. And one of the things too that, you're alluding to is there's this emotional scale. Do you have yours with you?
Yeah, I didn't know if you want me to show it or not.
Go ahead and show it and back it off a little bit so we can just kind of see it. So the emotional scale. So there's the lower, denser feelings. So kind of what are some of the lower, denser feelings where you're probably not attracting what you do want. You're not resonating with the things that you do want. Like you said, money is the feeling of abundance and happiness and things flowing in, right? So that's going to be high up on the scale. Yes.
For some people, we said money in that group the other night. And for a lot of people, when they said the word money, it was down here. But when you can say money and it feels up here, that's a good sign. That's a good sign of being in vibration. Yeah. So we just have numbers here, 0 down to 10 and 0 up to 10. Anything under 0 is stress or discomfort. Down here, we have despair, depression, frustration, anger, confusion, those kinds of things, stress. It's all down here. Up here, we've got clarity, peace, calm, love, joy, wisdom.
Gratitude, I hear, is also really.
Oh, gratitude and love, 2 most powerful forces in the universe. Yeah.
So one of the things that I think can be really tricky, and I know we're kind of nearing where we need to wrap up, but one of the things that I know can be really tricky is that there's a desire to want to be higher on the scale, but we keep getting tripped up and we keep slipping down, and we might get little blips of moments where we're high up on the scale and we're feeling good, but more often than not, we just slip back down again. So can you talk a little bit about why that happens and what can we do if that's what we're experiencing?
Absolutely. Yeah. That generally is because, I'll just use this again, generally because this becomes what's normal. This is what we are most comfortable in because it's what we know the best. When we experience something that isn't the norm, like, a moment of joy, which was the case for me when I was down, I smiled, and that was weird to use those muscles. So that was unusual. And so I quickly came back down here because this was more comfortable, because this is what's familiar. When we move into something that isn't familiar, the amygdala fires and it goes, wait a minute, fight or flight. I'm not sure I want this, even though we know we want to be happy. We're pretty sure happiness is what we want. But for so many people, especially people who have been with depression and anxiety for a long time, feeling happy can be scary. It can be really uncomfortable. And that's the hippocampus and the amygdala firing back. They're doing its job. Your process is working exactly the way it's supposed to. We want to keep ourselves in our comfort zone. It ends up being a default. And so what we want to do is change the default. So over time, you can change and shift your default so that you spend more time up here. And it even gets to a point where you're used to being up here, that down here becomes not so comfortable. So, but the nature of life is that we do go up and down. When we keep coming back to that place that isn't where we want to be, it's usually because it's familiar. We know we can handle that because we have been for years. We know how to be in debt. We know what that looks like. We know what it feels like. We know what to expect. We don't know what this feels like. We don't know what having plenty of money feels like. We don't know what a loving relationship is like because we haven't had it before. And even though it's a little uncomfortable, we need to, because it's a little uncomfortable, it's helpful to do something like tapping, because tapping actually physically lowers cortisol and it calms the nervous system. So we can go, even though I'm in this loving relationship and I don't know what to expect next because it's so unusual and I'm not used to being loved, I choose to be calm and relaxed. And we can give ourselves permission to experiment with these new higher vibrational feelings and take it one step at a time, like you tiptoe into a lake to see what the temperature is, and get a feel, so that you're doing it in a way that feels safe. It can feel very unnerving to move into a happy state because it's unfamiliar.
Such a great explanation. I think it's a really good point that for some people, it's scary actually to be happy, or to let yourself be loved, and to really experience that full experience of being loved, that actually can trigger a feeling of not safe, right? Not being safe, for example. It's fascinating. Most people would never realize that, but especially if we've had trauma or we have never experienced that before, it can be a real challenge to be able to create a new reality for yourself where you actually get to experience love on another level that you've never have before.
Absolutely.
I think it's important to recognize, like, if it were easy, everybody would be doing this. Like, everybody would just be manifesting their romantic partner or whatever. But part of the process, I think, and one of the benefits of learning about how to recognize our emotions and work with them and process them, and not be afraid of them, right? Not be afraid of the fear or the hurt or the sadness, but rather to have the tools to process and integrate and to move them out. That empowers us to be able to look at those situations and create the new narratives for ourselves, which then allow us to create new results, new levels of happiness, new levels of joy and abundance and love that we haven't been able to experience before. And one of the things that I kind of want to just put in the nutshell is, for some people, it's really important to have, I think, a professional that is walking them a bit through that path, because a lot of us have this loner syndrome. I can do this myself. So what have you witnessed as far as people trying to do it themselves versus getting somebody like you to help them? What's the difference there?
I think I've heard most is people who have made an effort on their own, for example, with tapping, will say, I just couldn't get to what I needed to get to. And they use tapping more like a Band-Aid that kind of gets them through the day. But they keep ending up back where they were at because they weren't able to uncover or go there without a person who knew where to go. And I don't like to pussyfoot around. I'm really, let's get in, get it done. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be painful. Let's do the work and move on into a more empowered way of living. So yeah, results are much faster when you work with a skilled practitioner. So I think that's the biggest thing. Sometimes people just don't get to where they need to get if they keep working on their own, but sometimes they do. You know, it's worth an effort. Tapping is a tool that's absolutely free, and there are a lot of free resources to help yourself with tapping. But if you find that you're still coming back to this default that's below zero, that's a good sign that you want to sit down with a skilled practitioner and clear that out so you can move on.
And especially like when you said, if you can get to it quicker, much quicker by having somebody else who's there. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I sought you out. I was like, I know there's something here, and I knew that you could get to it quicker than if I tried to screw around with it and figure it out on my own, right?
Yeah. And that's really the difference too between when I work with a group and when I work with people one-on-one. In a group, we can do a lot. One-on-one, we do it a lot faster.
Yeah, let's get to your specific areas that need to be worked on. And we worked on some of the physical pain, lower back and neck and things like that, because certainly these things, because their energy, can affect our physical form as much as our emotional form, right? So
yeah, when energetic disruption is not tended to, it generally manifests as a physical disease or pain in the body.
Which is probably why we have so much disease currently, because a lot of people, like you said, are struggling with even finding happiness.
Yeah.
So Yeah, so tell us about, so for people who are interested in reaching out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I am at Karen Aquinas at KarenAquinas.com. And I think that's showing now. That's probably the best way to do it. There are a lot of free, I host worldwide free tapping events every week. And so if you want to get a taste of tapping and how simple it is really to move up vibrationally, because if you're trying to consciously create something, then you have already made that decision to feel better. So if you have a tool, simple one like tapping, that can help you do that, yeah, I invite you to just pop into any of my free groups anytime and give it a try. Ask questions, tap and move and shift and feel the shift, feel the difference that it makes. Oh my goodness, it's a lot of fun. And those groups are absolutely free. So I don't know where we can put the link for that, but yeah, it's, you can find me on Eventbrite. You can, on my website, you can contact me and say, hey, where are those free group events? Luma.com is where most of them are listed. It's LU.MA.com.
Great. Yeah, and if you want to give it to me, I can put the link below the video too.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so absolutely. So, I mean, free is a great price.
I think it should be available to everyone. I mean, there was a time when I couldn't afford help. And so I think tapping should be available to everyone. It's a breakthrough way to change your life. So I make sure that it is available.
Definitely. Well, I thank you for your time. I hope this help people who've really been wanting and desiring to make those breakthroughs in their life, really been wanting to manifest more money or love or whatever it is, to kind of recognize the tools that they have at their disposal that can really help them start to do that more effectively, more often. And one of the things I think that is so important for people to recognize is the solution comes in learning to find ways to be happier and happier. So one of the inevitable products of this process is that you raise your happiness level to where you're more consistently feeling good. Mm-hmm. And then from that state, you start to manifest all that comes with that higher frequency, right? So who doesn't want to be happier?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it may not feel safe to some people, but when we work through that, work past that, and then we're able to sustain a higher level of happiness or joy, and know that from that state, we're able to bring to us the things, that allow us to receive the things. Yes, there's some doing, but there's also a lot of allowing and receiving as part of that, right? So
yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. And I will get this recording up here very soon.
Thank you. This has been fun.
Awesome.